Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win here, and we're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we are going to be revisiting the Whirlwind Barbarian set, which is pretty good. This is the Waste set. It primarily relies on two things, Rend and Whirlwind. Realistically, you're never going to be using Rend in this particular armor set build. It's really all about Whirlwind. You're going to be doing the majority of all your damage through Whirlwind. You're going to be spinning around greater rifts at very fast speeds, doing an incredible amount of damage. Now, for those of you who are not particularly familiar with the Whirlwind Barbarian build, I have it up here on the screen, but also in the description, I go into greater detail, giving you a link to the actual armor build that you'll be able to find on Icy Veins, a very good resource for Diablo 3, but here I'll put up what exactly the armor does. Realistically, we're not really looking at the 2 or 4 piece bonus. It's all about the 6-piece bonus, because when you channel your Whirlwind, you get a 10,000% increased damage to your Whirlwind, and you also are allowed, or not allowed, but you activate a dust ruin, which gives you the ability to create these little dust tornadoes that are left behind every time you Whirlwind. So in theory, this is a spin to win build. If you're familiar with the Gears of Dreadland set for the Demon Hunter, this is basically a more simplistic version of that build, but for the Barbarian. This is considered the S-tier armor build for the Barbarian. This is not going to be the starter set for Season 22 of Diablo 3. That's actually an armor that is based on Frenzy. I'm going to try to cover that sometime midway into Season 22. I actually do not have the pieces to that Frenzy Barbarian set, so I can't cover it as of yet. But don't worry, I got you covered. I'm grinding for the pieces as we speak pretty soon. So I should have it up, I don't know, fairly confident, maybe even at the beginning of next month, perhaps. Maybe even the middle of this month. Well, it depends. So I'm going to show you how this armor works virtually, visually, however you want to call it. I'm going to start with a Greater Rift 65. I want to show you how fast this armor sets up. So there's two things you always want to do with this armor set. You're going to want to set up your Berserker's Wrath, or Wrath of the Berserk, which allows you to get an attack and defense buff. Then you're just going to hold your Whirlwind literally the whole time through the Greater Rift, spinning around. You don't necessarily have to go in circular motions. You could just keep going in a straight line. I kind of like to try to get the elite packs in particular, because that's where all the Greater Rift orbs obviously naturally appear. But you're pretty much just going to be constantly holding in the Whirlwind button, spinning around. If you wanted to, you could, in theory, if you ran into an elite pack that you were having difficulty from, you could stop channeling Whirlwind, which it is not advised, and then you could just start using your Ren to do a little bit of damage, because you have an increase of damage to your Rens as well after you've casted a Whirlwind. It's not the most viable thing to do, which is why, based on your KNOX cube, really is where you're going to be able to get more damage out of this armor, because there are various armor set pieces that you could use in different combinations to buff the effects of Whirlwind. In particular, I have one particular piece in my set that every time I'm channeling my Whirlwind, it's also doing Ren. And thanks to the armor, it actually boosts the amount of damage of the Whirlwind plus the Ren that's going off as you're casting the Whirlwind. And then I have Earth things that allow me to get all the ruins for Wrath of the Berserker. So there's a lot of things going on here. I have an armor description up, link to it for anybody here. But this is really all you're going to be doing with Whirlwind Barbarian. It's spin to win, hold in your Whirlwind, and just constantly go through things. You don't necessarily have to keep going back to the elite packs. I prefer to do it because I like a little bit of efficiency here. This is a speed build. This can take you into significantly, extremely high Greater Rifts without optimization primarily. By optimization, I mean augmentations of your armor set pieces, which you used by leveling up ancient legendary gems, for those of you who are not familiar with. In theory, this is pretty much the armor that anybody who is playing Season 22 of Diablo will want to strive for if you are playing a Barbarian class. The Frenzy set is pretty underwhelming, in my opinion, which is a bit unfortunate. It's one of the newer armors that was recently introduced over the course of the last year, but pretty underwhelming. When you think of Barbarian, there's only really two particular armor sets that come to mind. The Whirlwind Barbarian one, which we are using right now. And as you can see, I think we just did about a 3-minute clear time, just literally spin to win, guys. And I'm carrying way too much because I forgot to identify all these things that were in here ahead of time before. So please bear with me. I'm going to identify some of these so I can then get rid of some of these things that I don't need to pick up some of the loot. So it's very important, though. As you saw there, I just casted Wrath of the Berserk, where you get all the ruins thanks to what I have in the KNOX cube. So it looks like we're not getting too much here. But in theory, for Season 22, this is pretty much the route that you should generally go if you want to complete all your seasonal journeys for that season. The Frenzy set, not so good. Another path that you could take is if you wanted to use the Earth set, which is the Leapquake Barbarian build. That one is generally okay. It could take you fairly high into the Greater Rifts, probably to about Greater Rift 65, maybe 70 with optimization. Then as you get a little higher up, it kind of loses favor. You could go with the Rykor build. That is a bit more complicated. That's a Furious Charge build. I did do a season where I played Rykor as my particular set for the Barbarian, and it did fairly well. I was able to get into Greater Rift 90s and 100 with it. Whirlwind Barbarian, though, allows you to do things much, much faster, much more simplistic. If you've ever heard the expression, wow, that was a 3-minute clear time. This is a Greater Rift 70 that we're doing now. The clear time's going to go up just a little bit because these mobs have a bit more HP. But yeah, Rykor will do you pretty well. Whirlwind Barbarian is the easiest set to use. I hate to say the expression so easy an idiot can use it, but that's pretty much what you apply here. Really, every set on every particular skill that's equipped here outside of Whirlwind and Ren, which you really don't even really need to use Ren in this set at all, is pretty much there to increase the amount of critical hits you do, increase the amount of damage that you could take, and increase the amount of damage you can deal to your opponent. Really, everything's just Whirlwind. The only drawback to this armor, which is a little bit of Achilles' heel, is you have to keep an eye on your Frenzy. Although it doesn't look like it right now, if you get a little too channel crazy and are not doing damage to mobs, you can burn through your Whirlwind, or particularly your Frenzy, way too quickly from Whirlwinding into no mobs that are present. So you definitely have to keep an eye on that, because once you run out of Whirlwind, you put yourself in a very dangerous position with this armor where you will definitely get squashed pretty fast, particularly in the high Greater Rifts. That's why it's kind of always important to not really go too far back when you miss a couple of mobs. Like I'm doing here, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a newbie mistake there, where instead of just keep going with Whirlwind, I went back to try to take out things. You really only want to try to go back when you see elite packs such as this. And even then, I'm going to kind of ignore it just to keep going because I don't really want to waste Frenzy. That's the thing with the Whirlwind Barbarian set. In particular, you don't want to have any wasted motion in particular, so you want to kind of keep it very consistent. You don't want to be Whirlwinding into virtually nothing. You want to always be Whirlwinding into a mob or getting close to Whirlwinding into a mob so that you don't burn through that Frenzy quickly. That's where people tend to make a mistake, is that they Whirlwind and then there's like nothing around and they're still Whirlwinding, when it's usually better to perhaps stop. Now, when it comes to gems that are in here, I have a Bane of the Stricken, a Bane of the Powerful, and a Teguk, if I recall correctly. The reason for this is because every time you channel with Teguk, you get an increase to the amount of armor you have, which is very important because Just like with the Gears of Dreadlands set for the Demon Hunter, even though you're spinning around, dealing damage, and doing things and clearing things through super fast and efficient rates, you can take a lot of damage through projectiles, through lightning and everything, which is why you need to be very cautious and very smart as to how you play. And this is why you always kind of want to make sure you can get your Wrath of the Berserk up, and you also want to make sure that when you can't cast your Wrath of the Berserk, that you cast your, Iron Skin ability, and just, increase the critical amount of hits that you can do. As you can see, we're pretty much at the end of this rift already. And this is greater of 70. This is looking probably a 4-minute clear time. It's going to take us a little bit to take down this Rift Guardian, because this is the one that has a bit more HP. It's quite a bit of a nuisance to us. Ooh, we got squashed there. That was unfortunate. See, this is the earthing. When you get... See, I got squashed so much that I have no fury left, so I got to back away for a couple seconds. Got my Wrath of the Berserk up, which allows me to cast all the ruins. I should be able to take it down here. Oh, or I get squashed again. Like I said, Barbarian, once that Whirlwind gets disrupted, that's where you have your Achilles heel. This is a really hard Rift Guardian to always take out. Everybody kind of fears this particular one. It's not the most optimal thing, but we're still, even when we took those 2 deaths... Oh, we got a Primal Ancient Legendary there, folks. I don't know if you saw the red glowing thing. That indicates we have Primal Ancient Legendary piece that dropped. Looks like it's a weapon. Excuse me. All right. Trying to inspect some of these things because my bags are full yet again. I still haven't salvaged half these things from the last run. Puzzle ring. Wow. As you can see, not every piece in the set is Ancient Legendary yet. Obviously, when you're going for this particular armor set, you want to try to get Ancient Legendary pieces for all your armor. That way you can augment them. That's the actual pieces to the armor set that we need for the Frenzy set. It's the Savages set. I'm not going to pick up those pieces because I already have pieces of the foot that are way better. I have a rare piece for it. Alright, Spires of the Earth. That's the Earth set. That's the Leapquake Barbarian. Okay, Riker's Burden, which we have plenty of as well. What's this? Riker's Wraps. We have plenty of those. Let's see. We don't really need anything for the belt either. Alright, so we can drop these. We can... Not the pig sticker. Because I could reroll that pig sticker for something else that uses that. Like my Crusader. We could get rid of this. That's not use. Let's get... I want this Primal Ancient Legendary to inspect it. The rest of the stuff can be thrown away, really. Let's inspect. Is it good? This is a case where we got a Primal Ancient Legendary, which is always nice to get, but it's a weapon that we'll probably never use, so I'll probably just leave it in my box for boredom. I could really salvage it at this point, but you never know when you might need a piece there. I'll get rid of those 2 things. Do I want to pick up the rest?
I can't pick up anything now.
Alright, now, we still got Inspector. Let's get rid of that Riker's Wrap. Let's inspect this one. Depth Diggers, don't need that because it's not a Ancient Legendary piece. Don't need Blackthorn, that's pretty much useless. Pick up those last 2 pieces that we needed. And we pretty much did everything here. Let's augment the gem. Okay. Go for the Bane of the Powerful. Taeguk is really the only one we have fully leveled here. I'm going to level the rest of these gems appropriately. That way we can push things a little higher. Alright, let's see. This should have been about 4-minute clear time, which it is. That was greater of 70. Now we're moving on to greater of 75. I just used my Wrath of the Berserk thing to give myself more damage. As you can see, we're swinging for about 22 billion to 22 million damage. Depends on the critical hit. When you're using this particular set and you're grinding in your seasonal journey for this particular thing, make sure on your helm that you have critical hit chance 10% on your gloves. Ideally, crit hit damage of 50%. If you could get attack speed, that's at least 6 to 7 on that as well. That is optimal. On your helm, ooh, we took a bad death here. Remember, we're on Greater Rift 75 right now, so we're a bit squishy, and these mobs have a lot of HP, but we should be able to take this down. Because we just got to keep spinning into things and not having our Whirlwind get disrupted. When it comes to this, really, Now is when you try to ignore going back into mobs. You just keep spitting the rest of the way through, cutting through things like a hot knife through butter. You're not really concerned whether you take something down or not. As you can see, this is really, really fast clearing still for Greater Rift 75. Which, this is the only really Barbarian set that can do this. Riker is a very good set as well, but it's a push build, Furious Charge, and you have to rely on windows of conventional elements, time with your Furious Charges, to be able to really clear things with ease, which is not very optimal. I'm not really a fan of Furious Charge Barbarian. It's a different playstyle, but it's a boring playstyle. I actually prefer Leapquake. But getting back to things that you want to look for on your particular armor pieces, on your helm, you want a critical hit chance of 6.0%. Then, obviously, you want a good roll for strength, a good roll for vitality. If you could get armor on it, it's fine. Ideally, if you had additional... Ooh, we walked right into that one. That should not have KO'd us. I don't know what happened there. Maybe we lost friends. Ooh, the lightning is one-shotting us. All right, guys. Got to back away here a little bit. Get a little bit of distance. Okay. There we go. Now I got my buffs back up, which is important. I'm going to kind of avoid that mob for now, because it's causing a little too much death. There we go. That should do good. So on your helm, you want 6.0 for that. You could also really, on your set pieces, if really you want to get increased damage to your Whirlwind if possible, and to your Frenzy, the rest of the stuff is pretty much useless because those are the only two abilities you really would use here. That Lightning Elite is being the bane of my existence right now. I actually had to use a Ren there, if you did not see. It doesn't do so much damage here. All your damage really is going to be coming from Whirlwind. Alright, finally took care of that pesky Elite mob. Alright. Like I said, sometimes when you're on the higher Greater Rifts, Greater Rift 75 and above, don't get rattled if you take a death or two, or even in that case 3 or 4. Remember, the mobs can do a lot more damage to you sometimes than you can to them, and they have a lot more HP, because the HP scales. Once you get like into 80 and above, things get crazy as the numbers go up. So right now I think we cleared through everything. So alright, there we go. Go to the left-hand corner here. Just again, always guys, pretty much spin to win. I'm just going to keep holding Whirlwind in, timing my windows properly, trying to just kind of sweep everything as I can. Alright, nice circular motion there. Kind of using the pillars to just kind of circle around each one of them. I should stop to get that pylon, but I'm afraid of that elite pack there, so I'm just going to kind of distance myself and spin back around this way. Good thing about Whirlwind, see, that's why I did it this way, because spinning around that way would allow me to get a bit more distance, take out some of the pesky little mobs that are kind of causing a bit more damage than the particular big elite monster was. Alright. This should be easy to take down. This is not a hard... Oof, spoke too soon. I was going to say, this is not a hard Rift Guardian to take down, but I have to watch out for its AoE effect, obviously, because that can cause issues here, because Whirlwind Barbarian has to Whirlwind within that particular circular window. So it's kind of ironic that the last 2 Rift Guardians have been completely anti-Whirlwind Barbarian here, but we took it down. Generally easy. We took a couple of deaths there, but it doesn't really matter. Remember, with Diablo, taking some deaths, you might lose your chance bonus, but that's fine. Really, it's about pushing, and when we get these gems augmented a bit higher, stuff like that won't happen. So we're going to level up the Tagook a bit more. One more here. All right. Ideally, you want to get those gems to about 70, 75, 80. This set also could use a bit more optimization. Like I said, there's probably only one particular set piece here that's been fully optimized. All right, so this is going to be the third and final Greater Rift that I do today. This is going to be a Greater Rift 80. I'm going to show you how well it does on Greater Rift 80, which is Torment 16+. Keep in mind, mobs got a lot more HP, so they can kind of absorb the hits a bit more. But when it comes to Whirlwind Barbarian, you're just kind of like ignore everything and just keep spinning. As you keep spinning, remember that Dust Ruin in particular is going to leave dust tornadoes around that will do accumulative damage to anything behind you. So it's kind of important to just sometimes back away when you can and ignore things that you're not able to just kind of kill one hit. See? That's why the dust tornadoes that are left behind from Whirlwind really are the things that pick off everything that you don't hit, which is why it's kind of important with Whirlwind Barbarian to just, if you can, just keep going forward and ignore everything. Sometimes you can go back. This is not particularly the best dungeon I like to see here because our mobs are leaving a whole bunch of poison trail here, and as I mentioned before, even when you're whirlwinding, you can take a lot of damage. So you're not invincible when you're whirlwinding, which is a common misconception a lot of new Whirlwind Barbarian players have. All right, looks like we got a spin towards the left-hand side. I believe the doorway is a little towards this way. We're going to kind of go a little bit circular motion. I did use a Ren there. You can see I stopped for a second to do Ren. You can do it. It's just these mobs are not particularly ones you want to square up with Ren. You can get away a bit more with the lower grade rifts. Also pop my Wrath of the Berserk again so I could get all 4 of those ruins. And remember, I got attack and defense buff. Alright. Got a defense buff. Now I'm just going to keep spinning around and just going through those things. I'm not even going to go backwards. Thanks to Dust Tornado Rune. Only time I'm really ever going to go backwards into something is if I see an elite pack that I should probably take out. I'm going to back away a little bit because there were too many mobs towards that side. Everything is throwing projectiles at me, which is a recipe for a KO. I could get killed here. That lightning came out of nowhere. Case in point there. Okay, pop my Wrath the Berserk again. Gonna go in circular motion here because I do want to get rid of this naughty elite. And since I wasn't able to take it down, I'm just gonna keep going forward now because it's not worth trying to go back to square up with it. Realistically, you just want to keep going forward. Speed is vital for Whirlwind Barbarian, not so much how much you're doing to some of the elite mobs. I'm trying to get that last one. Probably would have to stop to run, but there's too many fireballs around. See, this is why sometimes it's not a good idea to go into a greater of 80 with Whirlwind Barbarian that's not fully optimized. Only one piece is augmented on this set as of yet. So, obviously, this is armor that's a work in progress, but it is pretty much the definitive Barbarian set, as you can see. It does things very well that our particular Barbarian sets don't do. So, when it comes to Season 22 of Diablo, there's really absolutely 0 changes whatsoever to the Barbarian. So, or at least for Whirlwind Barbarian, there's 0 changes. There's one change I could mention. It's kind of for Leapquake. There's a item that has been buffed from its regular rarity. It was usually a common rarity. Now it's going to be a legendary rarity, which says that it increases the damage of your Leapquake that causes avalanche. So, in theory, you could kind of make a build with Leapquake Barbarian that uses the avalanche ruin now. Ideally, for Leapquake Barbarian, you're always going to want to go with the Earthquake that causes fire and eruptions and whatnot. You really don't want to go the ice path because the ice one is just really not viable. The Earth one is just so much better to use. They did give them something that's about the only thing that's been new and added to the Barbarian for Season 22. So they're probably one of the more ignored classes for this particular season. I guess based on the theory that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Obviously, that can change. For those of you who have been asking me on social media and everything, Season 22 of Diablo III has kind of been delayed a little bit. Right now, the projected date for Season 22 of Diablo III to start is estimated to begin on November 13th. That would be a Friday the 13th. At the earliest, it's November 13th. Ideally, that's the middle of the month. There is also a nerf theory going around that maybe because the PTB was delayed a bit and they didn't just end the PTB right away, that maybe we might be not going to see it even on the 13th. It'll be the week after. I'm fairly optimistic that probably Blizzard is going to want to get that Diablo season out by the middle of November, considering most of the Diablo seasons have usually begun about the second week of the second Friday of the month. Primarily, that's just kind of how it's gone the last couple of seasons. So I don't really see Blizzard changing that pattern for this particular season at the moment, based on everything. I am curious to see why they decided to delay the season a little bit. Usually, if they're going to delay the season, that means either they're going to perhaps augment something that they introduced into the game. Maybe it could be the seasonal buffs, which would be the shadow clones, as well as allowing you to have a 4th slot in KNOX Cube, which is a pretty big game changer. Shadow clones, a lot of people really haven't cared for Season 22 of Diablo. Most people felt underwhelmed. Okay, we got the Rift Guardian. I gotta be careful here. We ran into the same Rift Guardian 3 rifts in a row, I believe. This is crazy, guys. This was literally 3 rifts in a row. This wasn't like I did. Oh, man, I really hate this thing. And we keep running into it. This is the worst one to run into because of its AoE damage. Whirlwind Barbarian doesn't really like to face up against AoE damage on particularly high greater rifts. Alright, we should get this. We got it. Alright. A little bit of ease there. I'm saying probably 7 or 8 minute clear time. Unoptimized, though. If you have full augmentation here, this greater rift 80, you should be able to clear, I would say, in theory, about 4 to 3 minutes, depending on the dungeon layout and whatnot. Going to augment the Teguk a bit higher, because we definitely need more defense from channeling. I'm going to return to base. And we're going to take a look at that clear time, and that's pretty much going to do it for this particular installment. Let's see what we got. 7-minute clear time. All right, Greater Rift 80. So it needs more optimization, basically, when you see something like that. When it's fully optimized, you get, like, clear time 3 to 4 minutes on Greater Rift 80. So that's going to do it pretty much for today's Diablo 3 episode. Episodes air every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Till next time.